Hi, welcome to the Sync Licensing 101 Masterclass. My name is Amelia McCloskey and I am CEO and founder of AM Licensing. Today we're going to discuss all things sync, from delving into what sync licensing actually is, master and publishing copyrights and why they're important in sync, potential issues when dealing and clearing rights, metadata and why it's important, the use of PROs and their role in sync, the role of sync agents and music supervisors, writing for sync, the UK sync market and how it was affected, and advice from entering the sync market as well for those that are interested. So I'm just going to start the presentation now. So the current projects that we are working with at the moment are that we offer sync mentoring services for those wishing to break out in the industry, which I'll delve into a bit more later. We also are supervising an independent film based in Germany at the moment. We are handling all the music supervision for that. We also handle a lot of major artist clearances for sync. And we recently signed with 2 new partners in China to represent our catalogue. And we're a regular keynote international speaker for global conferences as well. And we negotiate a lot of deals for clearance work and more supervision projects. So let's look into what sync licensing actually is for those of you that aren't sure. Sync licensing or synchronization refers to the use of music in movies, television shows, advertisements, video games, presentations, YouTube videos, or any other product where music and moving image are used simultaneously. So when a song is licensed for synchronization, the composer or publisher receives a fee for the use of the underlying composition, and also the owner of the rights to the original sound recording, which we're going to delve into a bit more in a second. Sync licensing is slightly different to, say, music licensing. So music licensing is typically a different kind of license that you'd use for apps and things like that. So let's look into what is master and publishing copyrights. So the rights to a composition or a song are very important when licensing music, as you cannot license a song without the permission from the rights holder or rights holders if there's a few of you. Both the master and the publishing needs to be cleared by a music supervisor who wishes to license your music. So the sound recording itself is also called the master sound recording. So this is either owned by the artist themselves if they're unsigned, or by a record label who owns the actual recording of the song. But could it also be owned by the producers as well? If, say, you're a producer that produces music, you could perhaps own the master. So secondly, the other rights you need to clear as a supervisor is the composition of the musical work, which consists of the underlying lyrics and the melody written by the songwriter or the composer. This is either owned by the artist or the composer if they write or create their own music, or it's perhaps owned or administered by a music publisher. So always, when clearing music, these are the 2 copyrights that need to be cleared always. So the importance of the music publishing, the master publishing rights, is it makes it a lot easier for a supervisor to clear the rights to your music when you own both the master and the publishing. In sync, this is what we call as one-stop, meaning that you go to one place to clear all the rights. And typically, this is always favored by music supervisors because it makes their job a lot easier than having to go to 2 places separately to clear the sound recording and then to clear the publishing with the publishers. So in terms of cover songs, which are hugely, hugely popular, used a lot in adverts and, well, all kinds of sync licensing. If you record a cover song and pitch for sync, then you'd receive a master fee, and the publisher that reps the writers on the song will collect the publishing fee. So typically, if you're going to cover, say, an Ariana Grande song, you know that there is going to be a few writers on that track. There may even be a couple of publishers on that track as well. Because you've recorded a new vocal on that track, you would then receive the master fee because it's your vocals on there. But the publishers that originally that represent the song and the writers that write the song will collect the publishing fee. So the supervisor would clear the masters with you, they would then clear the publishing with the respective publisher or publishers. Okay. Some of the potential issues you can come up against to try and avoid is to always make sure that you agree on writer splits when co-writing with other writers or producers. Have this signed off in writing and the info listed when pitching your tracks. So basically, you've got to know what contribution each of you have had in that song and decide on those percentages after you've written the song or at the beginning, because this is essential for supervisors that want to clear that track. They will need to know who owns what. So also make sure that you sign something, always have that in writing, always get that signed off, because if you don't, this can really cause problems later, especially if the supervisor is wanting to clear it. Or if you've left someone off and you have signed a sync licensing deal, and a writer comes out of the woodwork later on and is like, hey, you owe me money. Obviously, common sense shows that this is going to cause way bigger problems. So make sure you also have work for hire agreements in place with the producers that you pay to do your recordings with, and the musicians too that you hire to work on your music. If you've paid them a fee to hire them as session musicians or the producer, you got to make sure you got a work for hire agreement in place, because here in the UK, if you don't have that in place, even if you've paid for it, the producer will automatically still own the rights to the masters. Okay, so let's look now at metadata and why it's important. Metadata in the context of music is the information embedded in an audio file that is used to identify the content. So metadata is effectively SEO, search engine optimization, for your tracks, and will highlight in iTunes, etc., and is the necessary info the supervisor will need when pitching tracks, as they won't be able to clear the music without this information. So this is the difference between you getting your music licensed and you not, and it happens a lot. You could, as a supervisor, end up with a really, really great song, but if you've got all the metadata missing, that's going to make it difficult to clear. So they're going to choose someone else that does have that in place. So it's vital. As a minimum, you need to have, obviously, the name of the song, the artist's name, the writer splits in each respective PRO information and IPI details, which is a number that typically gets assigned when you sign up with that PRO. I'm not sure if I've got it on here, but you also need tune codes as well. So when you register each track with your PRO, you'll get given a tune code number that will also need to be on the information as well. You also need details of who owns the masters, whether that is yourself or the label. You'll need publishing info. If you haven't signed with a publisher, then typically you probably own your own publishing, which again, then makes it one stop. which you should definitely put down if you do have a one-stop option where they clear everything for yourself, because that definitely is a plus. Okay, ISRC codes, if it's been released, when you release music, you will always have an ISRC code attached to it. So it's good if you can also put that in as well. The mood and genre tags, this helps as well, because supervisors typically like to include that in their database. So when they're searching for music, if you've got all those tags put in, then your music is more likely to come up when they're doing searches as well for projects. BPM is really, really useful because it can be really specific in terms of searches, in terms of what a music supervisor is looking for, which means beats per minute. So it can be really specific to that as well. So it's useful to have that in there. Year of release is really important because, say, if you write 90s music, or you've got some music that are from the 90s or 80s or 70s or so on, a lot of films are set within that time. And so music is still in demand that sounds like it's from that period. So if you're able to put that, that is really, really helpful. Obviously, your contact details, and you should always state as well if it's a cover song and not your own. So this is the difference between your music being licensed or not, really. Okay, so we're now going to look at the importance of a PRO. PRO meaning a Performing Rights Society. So a synchronization royalty is paid to songwriters and publishers via a PRO. So in the States, this is ASCAP and BMI, CSAC. We've got PRS in the UK, MCPS. There's all sorts, obviously, for every single country that you're in. And typically the PROs, they pay the royalties when music is used in a movie, a TV show, or an advert. In sync, this is what we call backend payments. And the master fee is what we call the upfront fee. So you'd typically be paid the master fee first, because it's paid upfront when they wish to license the music, and then you would typically have to wait a while for the royalties to come through on the back end payments in terms of the publishing. So in the UK, PRS pay royalties to their members when their music's being broadcast on TV or radio, if it's been performed or played in public, whether live or through a recording, or if it's been streamed or downloaded. So the importance of PROs are that here in the UK, MCPS pay royalties to their members when their music is used in TV, film or radio, or copied as physical products such as CDs, DVDs, although DVDs are not really massively used these days, or if it's been streamed or downloaded. So you'll need to have your music, and your co-writers also will need to be registered with their respective PRO in order to license music in the first place. Without this, you cannot license your music because it will not be able to be tracked, you won't be able to be paid. So it can also take 9 months minimum to be paid on the back end of royalties. So if you're relying on that for income, yeah, don't. It takes a while to come through. Okay, the difference between a sync agent versus a music supervisor. So a sync agent is typically the middle person between the rights holder and the music supervisor. This is also what us at AM Licensing do. We're a sync agent, although we're also a music supervisor now. You can do both, but typically it's common to have them separate. Sync agents represent your music either exclusively or non-exclusively for a length of term decided. They'll pitch your music for projects and they will utilize their connections. So a lot of supervisors actually prefer dealing with sync agents directly because they're a trusted source rather than an artist sometimes. Some agents also register your music with PROs too, but some don't. So it's really, really important to have your contract checked out to see what, the terms are. It is useful to have a sync agent, but don't expect to sign and see results straight away, as things take time, as you have to match up the right music with the right project. So a music supervisor is as detailed with the Guild Music Supervisors. They are described as a qualified professional who oversees all music-related aspects of film, television, advertising, gaming, or other existing or emerging visual media platforms as required. They are hired by the head of production and will handle majority of time the clearances, and they will source music, etc. So typically, music supervisors will either sign music direct with you, or a lot of the times the sync agencies, and it's their job to then sync that within the visual media. So writing for sync. It can be slightly different than writing for yourself or for an artist. So some points here to consider are that you should always try and write universal lyrics, so no names, places, or anything too specific, because you've got more chance of it being placed. And writing for advertising will have different requirements to, say, writing for film or for gaming. Do your research in this. Find out what it is that is required to, say, writing for film or writing for game, and see what's out there. See what, current music is being licensed. And make sure you also have top quality recordings. This is also really important in the sense of making sure you have really top quality plugins, that you have top quality sound libraries as well. Because trust me, this is a massive difference, again, between your music being synced or not. You could have the best song in the world, but if the production quality isn't there, or it has been mastered right, then it's not going to be placed. Background music will always need car radio scenes, club and party scenes, restaurant scenes, that kind of thing for film and TV. And also background music is going to be different from, say, composition, film score. So do your research, and also that is where sound libraries are really, really important in terms of, say, composition as well, such as string sounds. The amount of music I get sent by composers where, say, string and synth sounds in production music, just the quality just is not there, and I can't sign it. So convey emotion and focus on all relationships. So relationships are a theme that is typically requested quite a lot, and that's not just, say, love relationships. This is also, say, like family relationships and things like that. So really do your research into syncable themes, and you can see what music, a music supervisor that you're interested in, see what music that they've placed, see where your music fits and with what music supervisor, because doing your research is imperative. Because if you're a pop artist, but you send your music to a music supervisor that only deals with, say, metal or rock, you're not even going to get a reply, and they're not going to give you the time because you've wasted their time by not doing your research. I can't stress how important that is. Also, be known for being great at one genre. Play to your strengths. Like, we all have strengths, and especially creatively, you will have a strength. You will be better at one genre rather than another, and being known at being great at that rather than trying to be average at everything. Once you've established yourself, you can probably branch out into other areas, but just really hone your skills in one area. Don't make life harder for yourself. It's best to excel at that one thing rather than trying to be average at everything. And a supervisor will then come to know that you are a specialist in that, and they can turn to you for a specific sound. Also, be open to receiving professional feedback, perhaps through my mentoring, and ongoing guidance throughout the creative aspect. This is also really important before you send your music out. So I do offer professional feedback on music through my mentoring services, which I'll go through later, but also you can receive good feedback from, you know, sync communities and things like that, or other professionals in the industry that perhaps has that time to give you that feedback. And again, I mentioned here again, invest in a great sound library. Okay, we're going to look at now the UK sync market, courtesy of the BPI here in the UK, and we are going to look at how COVID affected that, especially within sync, but also in other areas too. So obviously all industries were heavily affected by COVID. In the music industry, it was the live side, as you know, that was affected the most, with all venues and touring shut down. And because of that, actually, a lot of artists turned to sync to, you know, hone their skills in a new area, rather than because they knew they couldn't really rely on the live side. So we're going to go through some of the stats now. So physical formats for CDs went down by 18.5% in 2020. And same with LPs, went down by a huge 30.5% here in the UK. Oh, no, sorry. Let me try that again. It went up by 30.5%. CDs went down, and records, LPs went up by 30.5%, which is quite a big amount. A lot of people were at home, so a lot of people were consuming music a lot more, which shows in the stats here. So it went from 66.3 million in 2019 to 86.5 million last year. And other physical formats were also up by 4.4%. So downloads went down by 23% in 2020. So it went down to 20.9 million in 2020. Albums also went down as well. And that went from 30.7 million in 2019 to 22.4 million in 2020. Music videos also went down by 2%. So overall, that was down by over 25%, which is quite a huge amount, which shows how much was impacted by COVID. But downloads may have been down, but streaming was up. So people seem to be consuming more streaming rather than downloading music. In terms of 2019, this was up by 566.9 million and went up over 14% to 650.3 million. So ad-supported streaming as well was up by 12.5% from 36.1 million to 42.4 million last year. Video streaming was also up in terms of 24.4%. So that went up from 35%. Okay, and in 2019, so that went up by 24% in 2020. So the total digital was up by 12.2%, which was great. And also sales and streams were up by 8.7%. Sync went down by 26.4%, which is quite a big dent. So in 2019, was the highest yet in terms of turnover at 28.3 million, and then went down to 20.9 million because, and I'll go into the reasons why in a second. So public performance was down by 22.4%. So it went from 135.9 million to 105.4 million, which is quite a big difference. In terms of sync, though, things are now picking up, they are changing. So we are expecting a rise within the next few months because it has already picked up now that things are back and a lot of filming is happening again. So we should recover fairly quickly. So those digits should look very, very different in terms of numbers the next time the stats come through. Okay, this is how COVID affected the sync market in the UK and European, but also internationally, because all production in media literally halted almost overnight. That meant no filming was able to happen, which also meant no briefs were able to happen, no music for supervisors were able to work, and no one was able to pitch music, which meant no income, no briefs, but streams were up because people were at home streaming music, not downloading, just streaming now. So that saw a huge rise. One positive aspect, though, was that there were more meetings and more connections happening. Business was still going ahead in terms of new relationships established because everyone was at home. So advertising was actually able to continue more than, say, a lot of, say film projects, but it was more home style productions that were being used with mobile phones and to reflect the current market, which music was still being licensed for. Okay, do's and don'ts in sync. As I mentioned earlier, you need to research music supervisors and what they've worked on. This is really important. If you take anything away today, make sure it's that, because you cannot send out music without knowing who and what and why. So who the music supervisors are, what they do, and why you're sending music to them. Branding. You are a brand, a business. You are offering a service. So even if you're an artist, a composer, a writer, no matter what you are creatively in this industry, you are a brand. You are still a business. So does it look professional what you're sending out? And that includes everything, not just, the emails that you're sending, but also your website, your social medias. Does it look professional? That's important. Read back your emails when pitching your music and check your work. Get people's names right. It's astonishing how many people will reach out and get the company name completely wrong, or will get my name completely wrong and call me Louise rather than Amelia or something like that. It's just sloppiness. It's just haven't checked their emails of what they're sending out. It looks lazy, and it's definitely not going to get your music signed. It seems so simple, but yeah, it's just an easy mistake many overlook. So really do take that time. Don't spread yourself too thin by working on too many things at once. Get the balance right. It is a juggling act in terms of, say, writing, being creative, creating the music, which is essentially the most important. But then also you need to think about the branding, you need to think about, time spent on pitching. So try not to spend too much time in one area. You can spread yourself too thin, you can get overwhelmed, and then you'll end up not doing anything. So it's really important to focus on your strengths. Like, sit down, figure out what you're good at, even creatively. What is it that you excel in, and be great at it, and focus just on that. Don't try and take on other genres if that's not a strength of yours, just because you feel like you want to, what we call here, throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. But that means just in terms of you're trying to throw everything out there and see what gets signed. That's not the best strategy. It's best to focus on what you're good at and excel in that area. And in a business sense too, don't try and write and pitch for advertising, film, gaming all at once. Choose your lane, become established in that lane first, and then you can perhaps look at other areas, because you'll spread yourself too thin again. Get professional feedback before sending your music out. That's really important, because you could be wasting your time if your music is just not ready. So make sure it's from a professional. Music can be very subjective. Everyone has different opinions when it comes to music, but essentially it's still important to get professional feedback to make sure that, one, it's syncable, two, the quality is there, etc. Know your rights, know who owns what in terms of the songs or the compositions, and get it signed with co-writers and producers, etc. Don't sign the same song with multiple agencies. This is the quickest route to getting everyone blacklisted, because if a supervisor is sent the same song by two different agencies, they're not going to know who to go with, and it is just a big no-no in the industry. Sign with, non-exclusive deals with different agencies, but offer different songs up. Get legal advice on all your contracts. That's really important. So you know what you're signing and what you're entering into. Know your worth. This is also really important. Like so many of us, we can doubt ourselves a lot of the time, especially creatives. Don't sell yourself short when offered a deal, especially when you're up and coming. But equally, don't pass up on an opportunity if the fee is low, but you feel it may lead on to other things and other projects, or that you may be recommended for something else, because that is worth more of its weight in gold than, say, a fee. Be patient, but equally don't be lazy. So when you sign with a sync agent, it takes time to place your music with a project. It has to match up in terms of the scene and what they're looking for. But also, don't sit back and just think that an agent is going to do all the work. Like, you should equally be putting yourself out there as much as possible as well. It should be a collaborative thing, not just, okay, you have my music, off you go, I'm not going to do anything. You should then also just be constantly creating new music. Okay, so it is a minefield out there. I know, because when I set up my agency a couple of years ago, as my background was in artist development and vocal coaching for 10 years, and a couple of years ago I set up my agency. I didn't know much about sync at the time. I quickly had to learn. I made a lot of mistakes, but once I got myself a mentor, I literally saw quicker results and learned a lot quicker. And it was nice to have someone to bounce ideas off and things like that. So AM Licensing can hold your hand and guide you through the whole process from song to sync and everything in between, with one-to-one personalized or group mentoring. So you'd receive one-to-one guidance, support, advice, expert music licensing knowledge in the following areas. So we'd discover why you're not getting the placements. If you've been sending your music out there and you're getting zero back, there's usually a reason why. Yes, sometimes it takes time, but there may be other reasons as well. We would delve into that and look into why it's not happening for you, so we can, make changes and help you get those placements. We'd also look into exploring other avenues to monetize your music in sync and music licensing. There are lots of other areas in licensing to license your music aside from the typical common avenues you're perhaps thinking of. We'd also analyze your current networking techniques and how you're approaching people, or if you're not approaching people yet, we'd help you to do that and do that in the correct way. You would also learn about key licensing trends, the kind of briefs that we receive, and what supervisors are looking for to make sure you're heading in the right direction. We would uncover new territories to license your music as well, to help you think outside the box, and we work on a global basis, so we would help you with that as well, to globally target your music too. You'd receive critical feedback on your music, especially throughout the creative process. We would be involved in every step of the way to give you guidance on what you're creating, to make sure that you're on the right lines, which can be highly valuable. Gain an understanding of why music libraries accept or reject music, because a lot of the time you'll send music back, you may get a no, you may not hear anything, and never understand the reasons why, so you can continue making the same mistakes and end up in the same place a year or two down the line, still no further. You also receive assistance with metadata to make sure you've got everything in place, exactly what it needs to be to send music out to get a license. Also with PRO, you'd get assistance with registering with PRO, catalogue management as well, making sure your catalogue is together, contract advice. Perhaps if you're interested in setting up your own sync agency, we would assist and give you advice on that. We'd also help you brand yourself as a professional sync licenser as well, and to make sure that your branding is really, really professional and as good as your competitors, if not better. We'd put a complete marketing plan together for your pitching, for your music as well, and to help you with that and help you to utilize that and to execute that. We would do a full analysis of your social media presence, and give advice or help assist manage that on your behalf. We provide accountability to make sure you stay motivated, that you are achieving your goals. We provide support and guidance, and motivation, which is really, really important. We would uncover up-to-date project info for current film and TV projects as to what's shooting at the time and perhaps needing music. We would map out a schedule to fit around your current commitments, and you would also receive a clear, concise career plan aimed at getting results and advice balancing your current workload and streamlining your processes to see if there's anywhere where you're wasting time in the wrong areas that bring zero results. You'd also receive access to sync briefs and the potential for your music to be chosen and represented by AM licensing. And so if you're interested in any of the services that we offer, in terms of, say, our licensing, our music supervision, our mentoring services, clearances, then feel free to get in touch at info@am-licensing.com or at www.am-licensing.com. And we are also on all digital media platforms as well. So feel free to get in touch. So I hope that you found that useful. Just going to bring the screen back now. I hope you found all of that really, really useful, and you've taken some tips away that will really help you with your sync career. And also, if you have any questions, that's completely fine. Just drop me an email. Sometimes it might take a while for me to get back to people, but I always do try to listen to music personally and to also respond to people as well. So thank you and good luck with it all.